Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. With us today is Marcus Riley, who's the chairperson for BallyCara, and he will be sharing with us lots of interesting insights about his role in the care sector, about his organization, and also about his interesting ideas for the sector. So hi, Marcus. Welcome today.
Hi, Janice. Thanks for having me, and hello, everybody.
Thank you. Well, Marcus, let's kick off by you sharing with us a little bit about your organization and how you care for seniors in Australia.
Sure. BallyCara is a charitable organisation, which our purpose is really about inspiring healthy and happy living, and particularly for seniors and also for our workforce. And we operate a range of services in Southeast Queensland and also in Melbourne. We have accommodation offerings for retirement living as well as residential aged care, and a wide range of home-based services, so support at home, assistance by way of care and other services, and also a big program around health and wellness. So part of that is preventative, where people can be engaging with services as a younger, more independent senior, all the way through to services as you progress through later life. And some of those are more restorative-based programs. There's a really strong allied health component to it. And essentially everything we do is underpinned by two things. One is what we call our sauna philosophy, and that's sauna is a Gaelic word for happiness, and that's really been developed over about 15 years now, which really sees us put the person at the core of what we do. And then the other underpinning element is our commitment to wellness, and we have a really firm belief around looking to foster wellness for people no matter what stage of life they're at, no matter what their capacities are. And again, also applying those sort of principles to our workforce as well and their wellbeing.
On the topic of wellness, how have you seen the reaction of seniors evolve towards this wellness philosophy at BallyCara?
Yeah, that's a great question, Janice. We've seen it very much evolve over time, and we've seen people better understand what we're trying to achieve, or more importantly, what we're trying to enable people to achieve for themselves. And they've seen the benefits either for themselves or others, which are very practical. And I think the practical or tangible outcomes people are achieving really fosters that belief and understanding in our approach to wellness, and through that, their engagement with wellness and the different opportunities that are there for people, whether they be focused on physical health and wellbeing, or emotional and social connection, and the wellbeing that provides. We've certainly seen people develop a better understanding and really look for that engagement now as well. And we've been very committed to applying it across the ageing continuum. So as I said before, it's certainly there for people who might be retirees or even pre-retirement, through to people who are in residential aged care and closer to the end of life, that there is this ability to engage with what we call wellness, and it can impact on people and their daily living, irrespective of what stage of life they're at. So we've certainly seen that engagement increase. It has taken a lot of commitment and certainly dedication from our team to provide that understanding, and also to obviously facilitate the benefits that people have been realising.
That's great. Well, when you see an independent senior moving into one of your villages, what can they expect to participate in? How many hours a day would they be expected to participate in the wellness programs? And given that we have a person-centered care approach, and it's up to their choice to participate in these programs, how have you seen seniors react to it? And how many hours do they commit to it? I think that's a question that many people globally are interested. In Singapore, we're trying to focus on at least 300 minutes of exercise a week.
Yeah. I guess the first answer is it varies based on someone's individual circumstances, but more importantly, their personal preferences and their priorities. So I'll come back to that. But a great answer to your question is a gentleman who's lived in our village for quite a few years, has increasingly engaged with our wellness offerings. And yesterday he celebrated his 365th consecutive day of exercise. And I think his name is Ron, and I think he's either side of 90. but is just a great champion of a commitment to wellness and his own well-being. So I guess through that, it's confirming the opportunity is there for people to do as much as they like, obviously with guidance and support, so you're not overdoing things, but getting that balance right. And for some, it might be a certain number of days per week with the formal activities. For others, through the understanding they gain and also the confidence they gain by working with our team, that they are undertaking more activities away from being with their the wellness staff. So they'll be doing things on their own or with friends and family that fall under that wellness remit, which has been really important. So whether that's obviously the physical activity, but also mindfulness activities and other things which support their well-being, socialisation as well, which is something it's really important, a really important part of it. So I think in terms of quantifying it varies for people, and again, it's really about providing them the opportunity and the choice they can make in terms of what they engage with and how they pursue their improved wellness. And also, obviously, as far as capacity is concerned too, and what people are able to do, and obviously the professional guidance and support that our wellness staff provide is really important in that regard, so that people are doing the right things at the right times. And for some, like Ron, who I mentioned, it's obviously a gradual process where they might start with the lesser end of time and activity, but as their ability and their technique and their confidence and knowledge grows, they're doing more and more. So it does vary for some, but it's obviously very much driven by what's important for the person and what they prefer and what their priorities are.
Well, special shout out to Ron. Well, very good job for 5 consecutive days of exercise. I think us could try this method to see if we actually have achieved consecutive days of exercise.
Yeah, the challenge has been set.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get on that challenge, and all of us listening in right now will feel motivated to start that. Inspired.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Marcus, what does care leadership mean to you?
3 things come to mind when we talk about care leadership. The first one being empowerment, and by that I mean seeking and really striving to empower the people who are using our services. So whether that's someone who is having quite high care needs and near end of life, as well as someone who might be quite independent and being able to do a lot for themselves and looking to achieve different things. So it's really looking to empower people no matter what stage of life they're at, but also empowering our staff. And I think that's been a really core strength of BallyCara's approach over a number of years now, is that really aiming to empower staff so that they can be doing things day by day, shift by shift with and for people, so that through their actions, they're then empowering people who are using our services. The second aspect that comes to mind is creative or being creative. And I don't mean that in an individual way, but again, as part of a collective team, that we seek to be creative. And sometimes that's big picture thinking and seeking to do things on a grand scale, but it's also importantly a creative approach to the day-to-day issues, and whether that's overcoming a challenge or a problem, or whether it's driving a sense of fun and participation with certain things. And it obviously goes hand in hand with that empowerment aspect too, that we want our people to think creatively. We want our clients and residents to be thinking creatively too, so that they're getting the most out of their life and of their lifestyle. And the third aspect is listening when it comes to care leadership. I think it's really important not important, it's absolutely crucial to be listening to the people we work alongside, staff who are working with our clients and residents side by side, understanding what they're seeing and thinking, their ideas, their concerns and questions. Obviously, our clients and residents themselves and their families really being committed to understanding and receiving their views, and again, whether they're ideas or questions and concerns, also complements any sort of feedback that people can give, we really need to be listening to that and then obviously acting on it. But it really starts with investing time in listening to people, and also obviously colleagues, others in the industry, people who are part of our external community. It's really investing that time in paying attention to people and really actively seeking their input to things.
In one sentence, how would you describe your care philosophy? Something you would explain to everyone who joins BallyCara.
It's absolutely about the person. So the individual person. It's about that individual person and their potential, their passions, their priorities, and then through that commitment, developing a depth of knowledge about that person and supporting them to gain a greater knowledge of themselves as well, so they can then pursue their passions and priorities and realise their own potential, again, irrespective of what stage of life they're at.
I'm sure being at BallyCara and being with the community there, you have many stories about how people's lives have improved as a result of being part of the community. Is there a particular favourite story you have of how one of the seniors' lives has improved since moving in?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, there are many wonderful stories that could be shared. One in particular is a gentleman by the name of Malcolm, who he moved into our care facilities, and Malcolm was in a wheelchair. He couldn't communicate verbally, and basically had use of his left arm, and that was his main method of being able to do things, and also his way of communicating with you. But he was quite unhappy, and for some time, his quality, he was getting good care, but his quality of life beyond that wasn't as good as it could have been. And to be honest, he was quite a cantankerous character who would be quite disengaged, and he would be largely withdrawn from our community there. And as we apply the approach I was just alluding to around really investing time in understanding who the person is and also who the person was. So we discovered that in his younger life, Malcolm was a champion swimmer in his youth, and obviously that was a really strong passion of his. And then as his capacities and conditions changed, obviously that was something that fell by the wayside. But the team, with that wellness and sauna approach, invested time in getting Malcolm back into the pool, and obviously with assistance, with our therapy personnel and others, he was then able to reconnect with that passion of his. He developed an increased capacity over time. After months of being in the pool with the staff, he was swimming his version of laps once again. And what that unlocked for him as a person was quite incredible and really inspiring, and certainly very heartening. And it just enabled him to reconnect with life. Basically, his self-esteem increased dramatically. His quality of life absolutely increased. And Malcolm went from being the guy who really stayed at the back of the room and was quite withdrawn to being literally the person at the front door who would welcome you every time he came in the front doors, and he would give you a cheeky grin and a handshake with his left arm, and just became this great champion of happiness and really fostered that sense of community. And a testament to that was he then started operating his wheelchair around the village community there, and was participating much more. And one day he came into the office and communicated to the staff to get me down from upstairs, and took me out the back to the car park and showed me I had a flat tyre, and hence was his increased connection to the community and being engaged with us all. So there's plenty of stories similar to that, but the story of Malcolm really has always stayed with me and continues to be a source of inspiration for us and our team.
Well, we all want Malcolms like that, and stories that we can relate. Champions of happiness. I think that's a great takeaway that I've got from learning your sharing today. So I think that's excellent. Well, let's move on the topic to the role of technology.
Sure.
And I know you keep track of all the technology innovations out there. What's a technology innovation that you haven't seen that you would like to have?
It's a good question. Something we haven't seen. think something that is a better, provides better evidence and insight to someone's well-being, to be quite frank, that goes beyond the clinical indicators and some of those things which, pardon me, are a requirement under different pieces of legislation and different things that need to be adhered to, but going well beyond that to where you can really, people can track for themselves, as well as providers and family, others who are part of that person's life and community, can get a better sense, a much truer insight of a person's well-being, and both over time as well as on a day-to-day basis. I think that would be invaluable, and I think it would be obviously quite advantageous for providers and people who are accessing their services, but I think it would also then provide unprecedented information and influence to our policymakers, our authorities and others who are making decisions, and quite big decisions for us as a community and a society, but in the absence of that really rich information about people's well-being and what influences that and better understanding it. So I think the value of that sort of technology, that sort of resource would be absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic. And I think that also relates to our next question. How important is quality of life for your residents? And let's divide that into, or your definition of a good quality of life for your residents. And let's divide that into the active residents and those residents who may be more immobile and in their beds more often.
Yeah. First, I think it's paramount. So again, whilst we've got a range of really important things we need to be doing and are doing, the importance or the priority of someone's quality of life, I think, has to be absolutely over and above anything else. And I think our system and the systems around different countries need to be more geared towards that, and monitoring that, evaluating that, and assessing providers about their role in people achieving a greater quality of life. In terms of what it means, I think to me it comes back to the person. I know that has become a bit of a cliche in our industry to a degree about person-centred and some of those terms that get thrown around. But I think whatever we're doing, both whether we're providers, whether we are policymakers, whether we are regulators, suppliers to industry, families and communities, it's got to be about the person and what matters to them. And again, I think that needs to include going beyond good clinical care. We need to, I believe, see good clinical care as a given. I know it's not always a given, but it should be just a given. And then we seek to go over and above that in terms of an individual's well-being and really what matters to them, which obviously is the influencer as far as someone's quality of life is concerned. So someone's well-being, how we better understand that, how we better measure that, how people are empowered to pursue their passions, and through that pursue that potential. And again, I think our system, as well as our approach as providers, needs to be much more geared towards understanding what the individual wants and what's important to them, and then tailoring the services and the system around that. I think at the moment, a failing of our system is that people have to conform to what the system can offer, and that's again not going to deliver optimal well-being and optimal quality of life for any person.
I think that's a global challenge, because no matter what we're trying to do and how much we're trying to innovate, sometimes the funding channels force us back into boxes.
That's
and
right.
Now we have to almost remove all these walls in order to drive change. And I think that's that we keep trying to push the boundaries more in the pursuit of a better quality of life for everyone. Now, we use data analytics for a lot of areas in our lives and monitoring and tracking progress. How important is it for tracking quality of life and quality of care?
I think it's highly important. The caveat to that is it must be meaningful. And I know that certainly here in Australia, there's been obviously an increasing focus on quality indicators and quality of life indicators. I think the intent there is right, but the formula isn't there yet. And so coming back, to your question about the data analytics, I think they can be really, really valuable, and certainly the insights we can gain to help planning, to help better engagement, to help a better design of services for the individual. It can play a really important role there. But again, it really must be meaningful. And I know I've said this a few times already, but really aligned to what's important to the person, because your definition of quality of life is going to be different to mine, and the definition of someone next to me is going to be different, as it should be. So we need to have data that somehow can capture and represent that, so that me as a service provider can better understand your progression and your pursuit of a quality life, and that richness that all people should be attaining. So I think there's a bigger role that data analytics can play, with that caveat that it's always meaningful. And I think obviously for people to understand the connection between what the data is saying and what the person needs and wants.
Definitely. I mean, we all look for a meaningful way to engage, and a meaningful way to collect the data, and everything must be done in order to fulfill a good purpose and reason for it. And that brings me to the question about staffing and talent development, which is something that everyone is very concerned with. There's a global demand for people to join the care sector. How do you motivate and develop talent for BallyCara?
I think there's two key aspects to it. One is demonstrating the connection to someone's work, to the person's work, and the outcomes for the individual using the services, be a resident or a client. So if my role is a carer, or in the catering side of things, or working in the gardens, or in administration, or whatever my role might be, that we're educating people, we're helping them understand the connection between what they do every day to the care recipient's outcome and the impact their role can have. And I think I know from the feedback from our wider team that that sort of connection is one of the, if not the top priority for them, or the thing that's most important for them in terms of their work, and them feeling good about their work and feeling positive about their work and wanting to continue in our organisation and in the sector more broadly. I think the other aspect, which is definitely connected to that first one, is employing a relational model, so that there can be these genuine connections and relationships between staff and residents, or staff and clients. And obviously our industry is challenging in terms of resources and time and compliance and pressures and all those sorts of things. But if we can again come back to the person, then we'd be empowering our staff to spend time with people and generally investing time in fostering those relationships. I think a relational model goes a long way to preventing some of the issues that the industry has seen here in Australia, and have been the focus of media and political coverage for the last few years. It's certainly a way in which we can help ensure better outcomes for clients and residents, because if you've got staff who know that person, understand them, they can be more proactive, more responsive, and more meaningful in what they're doing for the individual. So they're the two aspects, I think, for me, Janice. One is people, no matter what their role is, seeing the connection of what they do and how that impacts on a resident or client's quality of life. And secondly, ensuring that there's this relational model being applied across the range of services and the environments in which you're operating.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. And on that note, we'd like to thank you today for your session and joining us today on this series. And we look forward to hearing from you again. To everyone listening in, thank you very much for tuning in. And thank you very much, Marcus.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Janice. All the best.
CarePage Business is the only feedback platform designed for the health and ageing sectors. With CarePage Business, you can uncover powerful customer experience insights, monitor resident or client feedback and complaints in a single, easy-to-use platform, and get the insights you need to drive continuous improvement in services and facilities.